The Buddha and the Quest for Enlightenment. One of the most influential teachers of the time was the Buddha. Over the centuries, his message spread across the subcontinent and beyond. So now, Buddha, over the whole century, 100, 400 years, message of Buddha was taken around Central Asia, that means China, Korea, Japan, and then also through Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, and Indonesia. How do we know about Buddha's teachings? These have been reconstructed by carefully editing, translating, and analyzing the Buddhist texts mentioned earlier. So all the Buddhist texts, they were first edited, then they were translated, and then they were analyzed. And this is how we come to know about Buddhist teachings. Historians have also tried to reconstruct details of his life from hagiographies. Hagiographies, biographies of a saint or a religious leader, and these hagiographies are actually written by his followers. So they are often written in the praise of the saints or his achievements. So they may not always be accurate because sometimes when a follower is praising, he may be exaggerating. So we can't believe it to be exactly correct. But we come to know a lot about these hagiographies still. Many of these were written down at least a century after the time of Buddha in an attempt to preserve memories of the great teacher. According to these traditions, Siddhartha, that was Buddha's name by birth, at birth. So he was named Siddhartha when he was born, and he was the son of a chief of the Shakya clan. He had a sheltered upbringing within the palace. So we all know how princes are brought up. They are brought up very under a lot of protection and care, and insulated from the harsh realities of life. So he was not aware of harsh realities of life. One day, he persuaded his charioteer to take him into the city. His first journey into the world was traumatic because it was for the first time in his life he was seeing pain, he was seeing people suffering. He was deeply anguished when he saw an old man, a sick man, and a corpse. Corpse means dead body, earthy. He realized in that moment that the decay and destruction of the human body was inevitable. It was then that he realized that human body is going to get decay. Slowly, children, everybody's body is getting decayed. We are not as fresh and young as we were when we were a small child. And destruction. Ultimately, all human beings die. He also saw a homeless mendicant who, it seemed to him, had come to terms with old age. So, old sannyasi, he was there, he was old, he was suffering. So according to him, the old homeless mendicant seemed to have come to terms with old age, disease, and death and found peace. Siddhartha decided that he too would adopt the same path. Soon after, he left the palace and set out in search of his own truth. Siddhartha explored several paths, including bodily mortification, which led him to a situation of near death. So he tried various things in search of truth. So he even sat for years and years hungry, and he just sat there and meditated. And sometimes he became a part of plant or anthill. Abandoning these extreme methods, he meditated for several days and finally attained enlightenment. After this, he came to be known as the Buddha or the Enlightened One. So we should remember what is the meaning of Buddha and how he got the name Buddha. He got the name Buddha after he gained enlightenment. And what does Buddha mean? Children, you can get these small questions as MCQs. The meaning of Buddha and what was his earlier name. So you should be able to answer these small questions and mark them down. When you read the lesson, you should mark them down. For the rest of his life, he taught Dhamma, or the path of righteous living. So you all know Dhamma, Buddha then suggested an eightfold path, and that was his Dhamma. He said these are the 8 things that you study, and then you will attain enlightenment, or you should live your life in such a way. Okay? So, teachings of Buddha. Buddha's teachings have been reconstructed from stories found mainly in Sutta Pitaka. So, this is a Buddhist text. From here, we can come to know about Buddhist teachings. Sutta Pitaka contains many stories, and through the stories, we come to know about his teachings. Although some stories describe his miraculous powers, others suggest that the Buddha tried to convince people through reason and persuasion rather than showing his supernatural power. He did not do that much. He did not show his supernatural power to impress people. He convinced people through reason and persuasion. For example, when a grief-stricken woman whose child had died came to Buddha, he gently convinced her about the inevitability of death. He said, death is inevitable, you cannot escape death, and one day everyone has to die. So instead of showing his miraculous power and making the child alive, he tried to convince the old woman, the woman whose child has died, rather than bringing her son back to life. These stories were narrated in the language spoken by ordinary people so that these could be easily understood. According to the Buddhist philosophy, the world is transient, anik, and constantly changing. It is also soulless, anat, and anat, there is no atma, soulless. And there is nothing permanent or eternal in it. Within this transient world, transient means changing, constantly changing. Nothing remains same. World changes. Sometimes there is happiness, sometimes sadness, sometimes now whole world is stricken by disease, sometimes everyone is prospering. So world is transient. It keeps changing. It's opposite of constant. It is soulless and there is nothing permanent or eternal. Within the transient world, sorrow or the dukha is intrinsic to human existence. So Buddhist philosophy says that dukha will come. It is intrinsic, it is going to happen. It's unavoidable. It will be there. It is by following the path of moderation between severe penance and self-indulgence that human beings can rise above these worldly troubles. So severe penance, खुद तपस्या करने से और अपने आप को सारी वर्ल्डली प्लेजर्स से दूर रखने से we follow a path of moderation, and then we can stay away from all this. In the earliest forms of Buddhism, whether or not God existed was irrelevant. So they did not bother about whether God exists or not in the earlier forms. The Buddha regarded the social world as the creation of humans rather than of divine origin. Now, you remember, let's go back to our lesson, third lesson and second chapter, when the Brahmins defined the social orders, and Brahmins said the social orders of Brahmin, then Kshatriya, then Vaishnavas, and then Shudras, this order is divine, given by divine power. It has a divine origin. But Buddhists said that it is created by humans. Therefore, he advised kings and Gahapatis to be humane and ethical. Individual effort was expected to transform social relations. Buddha emphasized individual agency and righteous action as the means to escape from cycle of rebirth and attain self-realization and nirvana. So Buddhist philosophy or Buddha said that if you follow the righteous path, righteous action, the eightfold path, so that is the way or means of escaping the cycle of rebirth. Then there won't be rebirth and you will come out of the cycle of birth, rebirth. And self-realization, attaining self-realization leads us to nirvana. Literally the extinguishing of the ego and desire, and thus end the cycle of suffering for those who renounced the world. So people who renounced the world, जिन्होंने इस दुनिया का त्याग कर दिया, for them the suffering of birth, rebirth, sorrows, all that will end. According to the Buddhist tradition, his last words to his followers were, "Be lamp unto yourselves, as all of you must work out your own liberation." So you can be asked an MCQ question, whose are these words? These are last words of Buddha. Okay? Followers of Buddha. Soon there grew a body of disciples of the Buddha and they found a Sangha. And what is Sangha? It's given here. An organization of monks who too became teachers of Dhamma. These monks lived simply, possessing only essential requisites for survival. For example, a bowl to receive food once a day from the laity, the person who's दान में जो खाना दे रहे हैं वो receive करने के लिए. They lived on alms as they were also known as भिक्षुस. So उनको भिक्षु कहा जाता था और वो दान पे ही जीते थे. Initially, only men were allowed into Sangha, but later women also came to be admitted. According to the Buddhist text, this was made possible through the mediation of Ananda, who was Buddha's dearest disciple, who persuaded him to allow women into the Sangha. The Buddha's foster mother, Mahapajapati Gautami, was the first woman to be दाई जिन्होंने उनको पाला था, जन्म नहीं पाला था. She was the first woman to become a bhikkhuni or enter the Sangha. Many women who entered the Sangha became teachers of Dhamma and went on to become Theris. Theris means a respected woman who had attained liberation. The Buddha's followers came from many social groups. So who all followed Buddha? There were kings, there were wealthy men, Gahapatis, or there were workers, slaves, craftspeople, people from all backgrounds. Once within the Sangha, all were regarded as equal, having shed their earlier social identities. These social identities which they had earlier, they were the ones which were given by Brahmins or defined by Brahmins. Now, once they entered Sangha, they just became bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. The internal functioning of the Sangha was based on the traditions of Gan and Sangha, where consensus was was arrived at through discussions. So within the Sangha also, it was a republic. What is a republic? Where everyone sit and decide, take decisions. So a consensus was arrived. That means majority. According to the majority, discussions were taken place. Then according to majority, decisions were taken. If that failed, decisions were taken by a vote on any particular topic. Okay, now here you read the sources, children. Sources are always important. A woman water career. This is a sculpture from Mathura. So I've told you sculptures are also important in studying the history of the past. Rules for monks and nuns. What were the rules they had to follow? Read this. Buddhism grew rapidly during the lifetime of Buddha and after his death, as it is appealed to many people dissatisfied with the existing religious practices and confused by rapid social changes taking place around them. So, it's a very important question why Buddhism came up, or why Jainism, or why these new religious traditions came up. What is the need? So, one very important factor is that people were dissatisfied with the existing religious practices. And then, second reason is there were rapid changes in the society. The importance attached to the conduct and values rather than claims of superiority based on birth emphasizes placed on metta, fellow feeling, and karuna, compassion, especially for those who were younger and weaker than oneself, were ideas that drew men and women to the Buddhist teaching. So, what was it? Let's do it again. Conduct of values. In Buddhism, conduct of values were more important, that is, than superiority of birth. Superiority based on birth was given by the Brahmins, according to the Brahminical or Vedic tradition. But in Buddhist tradition, conduct and values were more important. So people liked this idea